Everyone, the time is 5:15, and we will call this meeting to order.
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here.
Monroe,
Here.
Simmons is absent, Parker,
Here.
Stacy is absent, Shadle,
Here.
Sanders and Sellers are absent, but we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The Pledge of Allegiance, led by Alderman Shadle. Mr. Shadle. Thank you very much. Item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have first motion Alderman Clem, second is Alderman Shadle. Voice vote?
Aye.
Voice vote, Mayor, if you would.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We will move on to item number 2, public comments, agenda items.
There were none signed.
There were none signed up at this time. Thank you very much. As far as the ordinance, first reading, Madam Secretary, first reading of ordinance 2023-40. Oh, I'm on the other one.
Yeah, you're on item number 6.
I'm on item number 6, my apologies. Presentation by City Manager Boyer and Director Richter relating to city finances. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my apologies for the previous items from the budget where they were cut off, so we'll be doing our best to make sure those aren't cut off in the future and address those as we go through the budget tonight. First, I'd like to start with, these are the budget items we'll be starting with: general fund budget, public works, government buildings, fire department, and interdepartmental. And then we'll also be discussing project funds, healthcare funds, liability funds, downtown loan fund, fire public safety fund, foreign fire fund, landfill fund, and health and environment fund. So to get started here, the first one is, let's see, do we have it okay? Yeah, kind of hard to see that one. Yep. So general fund revenues. So we have property taxes. It is budgeted at the same level as last year and may be changed after the tax levy is discussed in November. All property taxes collected are used to pay the pension obligation bonds. Also on income tax, we are budgeting the amount that was projected by the Illinois Municipal League based on population. And also the personal property tax or replacement tax, revenues collected by the state to replace money lost by the local governments when their powers to impose personal property taxes were taken away. The budget amount for the financial or FY 2024 equals the estimate prepared by the Illinois Department of Revenue less 10% directed to the library. And let's see here, municipal sales tax and home rule tax. The next 2 line items are sales tax and home rule taxes. So moving along here, municipal automobile renting tax is 5%. Special use tax, somewhat complicated, related to purchasing items out of state and the corresponding tax on those items. The next one down, let's see, am I running away with you here?
Video.
Okay, the next one is video gaming tax, 15% of the tax on net terminal income. Cannabis use tax. Let's see, where are we? Yeah. So that's the state excise tax on all adult use cannabis sales, a portion of which is allocated to local governments based on population. Then we have IDOT reimbursement, so that's maintenance of highways. So we have an annual agreement with IDOT to maintain specific roads or, for striping in between years on West Street and that type of thing. Fixing overhead lighting, we get an annual reimbursement. And then we've got the maintenance of traffic signals, the annual reimbursement. Let's see here. So that is an annual reimbursement from the state for repairing traffic signals on state. Let's see. The next one's electric and natural gas tax. Are we in there?
Food and beverage.
I'm sorry, I must have jumped ahead there on that slide. Electric and natural gas tax, these numbers represent 80% of the amount received. 20% is deposited to the roads fund for debt service. Telephone utility tax has been decreased for many years. Landlines are being dropped in favor of cell phones with data plans. Data plans are not taxed. Cable television tax, similar to the previous telephone tax, many are dropping traditional cable services, so that's a reducing amount. And reimbursements for fire and police wages, training for police and reimbursement for MABUS activities for fire. Then we have lien for weed, payments from property taxes that have been liened, placed on them for long grass and weed violations. Construction and zoning permits is the next item. Then we have airport. Let's see here. There we go. We've got the hangar rents, so that's a revenue there. Then we have grants, fuel sales, and farm leases. So we actually lease out some of the property around the airport. We do have it. We're working on making sure that all that is correct and it's up to date. So that's one thing we'll be working on this next year. Line items beginning with CC are fines/payments from the circuit clerk's office. Local source rent is the U.S. Cellular tower rent for the Birchard location. So we currently are leasing that area for tower, U.S. Cellular tower. Then we have insurance proceeds. So that's accident reimbursements and work comp reimbursements. How are we doing? So the next one is water, sewer in lieu of tax, accounting fee, distribution to corp. These items that have been changed to the water sewers over the last 20 years, we have not been able to find in the ordinance if required, and we're still researching that. So this is basically where the water and sewer fund reimburses the general fund for various activities. Interest income. We've been earning significant interest this year and do expect it to continue into fiscal year 2024. So let's see. So as you can see, we're estimating about $1 million in interest income this year. Transfer from Fund 32 per ordinance. We are to transfer 54% of revenues less administrative expenses from fire capital improvement to the general fund. And then transfer in, this is the transfer from the hotel motel in support of communication director position. So some of that hotel motel is going toward our communication director. Okay, I would, being that we're kind of short on time and we've got a lot to go, if there's any urgent burning questions, please ask them now. Otherwise, I'd like to keep rolling, and then hopefully we'll have a bit of time at the end to follow up. So is there any urgent questions on the revenue side?
I just have one question, and I don't know if Director Richter, do you know the local government distribution fund, is it lumped into the municipal sales tax?
Income tax.
Income tax, okay.
Okay,
Please continue.
thank you, Mayor. Don, Alderman Parker, did you have it? Okay. No. Okay, the next budget is, let's see here, Public Works. This is essentially the budget for the Public Works Director, approximately 50% of the wage. It's split out. 50% of the wage comes out of general fund, and then 25% comes out of water, 25% comes out of sewer for the Public Works Director. And it also includes 12 weeks of a summer intern. We haven't had a summer intern, but this year we opted to share this with community development so they could get someone to help them in their office. And then we've got consulting services. You see there's GovHR in this particular line item, or in this budget. We're looking for, we're planning to do a search with GovHR. I know that has been a challenge in the thinking in the past, but with things what they are today, I think it's at least important for us to budget it, whether we spend it or not. That would be up to council's decision to spend it. However, I want to make sure we're budgeting for it so we have a good search on a public works director. Okay. Okay, with that, I'd like to move on to the next. Government buildings. Under contracted building expense, we've got about $250,000 budgeted. So that's tuck pointing City Hall, but we also use these funds if we need to combine some resources to help us with acute problems at the PD. So that is that item. It is very costly to tuck point all the bricks around City Hall, and I want to make sure that we get it before it gets too far behind. We had budgeted some for this year. However, other priorities came up, like the fixing the grading out here on the side of the building. So in lieu of doing tuck pointing this year, we did that, but I want to make sure we budget for tuck pointing for next year. Also, the contracted equipment repair and maintenance, that there's nothing specifically budgeted there, but we wanted to have a little bit of a buffer there because as I mentioned, City Hall can be, it's an older building and you never know what's going to happen in terms of minute by minute. You may have an issue like you need to deal with acutely, so I want to make sure we have a little bit in that fund. And then lastly, on the capital outlay, construction of a new salt shed at the city yards. We've budgeted about $100,000 for that. Essentially, we've got 2 large salt sheds and a third if you count the dirt shed. The poles, it's a pole barn structure. The poles are basically rotted out, and we really need to replace that. So we're budgeting something, what we think is necessary for at least some repairs on the worst one. All right, moving to the fire department. So total staff for fiscal year 2024 is 55 full-time. That's 48 bargaining, and including 9 from the SAFER grant. So we're receiving the SAFER grant. We want to go ahead and hire 9 additional officers with that. So that is the total staffing. We also have 6 non-bargaining officers and 1 admin support included. Under wages, wages and fringe for the 9 SAFER grant staff are in the grant fund and not in the department fund. So you're not going to see those wages lined out here. They'll be under the grant fund. Overtime, if we do not receive the grant, the 9 positions will be removed. If we do receive the grant, we will need to revisit the projected overtime for possible reduction there. Clothing allowance and departmental gear, education, and training have been increased due to the addition of the potential 9 new staff from the SAFER grant. So we are budgeting to equip those new firemen. And then medical services, a slight increase from 2024. FY 2023 was higher than normal. We do not expect to be a routine occurrence, so we're seeing a small increase on 2024. Again, this is fire continued here. Okay, moving on to interdepartmental. Group insurance, the city share of the retiree medical insurance, as you can see there, it's that first line item there, you can see there's a slight reduction from 2023. Audit fees, we will be in the second year of a 5-year agreement for our annual financial audit. So that is predetermined by the agreement that was previously signed. Bank fees, that includes credit card fees and web portal pay online fees. Insurance and other employee insurance, so that's general liability policies. Real estate taxes, property taxes on any property we acquire. We are responsible until a property tax exemption is completed. So there is something budgeted for that. Transfer to debt service, so that's bond payments to the debt service fund. And then transfer to GF reserve. The city has a reserve bank account. Each year we are to deposit $250,000 in that. And that is, let's see here. Yeah. Then also transfer to capital improvement and equipment fund. Large equipment purchases such as police cars, dump trucks, enterprise vehicles, that is where that transfer goes to. And then the transfer out, let's see here. So transfer out includes transfer to the landfill closure fund, sidewalk reimbursement program, landfill or extra landfill, and then projects like the Prairie Path, and then also the Jane Addams Trail. So that is those transfer out items. Okay, with that, I'd like to move on to the projects fund. The projects fund records revenue and expenses for trail projects and sidewalk program. So revenue transfers in from the general fund, as we just discussed a minute ago. The expenses, we have 133-610-6170. That's contracted infrastructure repair and maintenance, and that includes sidewalk program expenses. This year, it's increased to incorporate more work through the mentorship program. That was one of the items identified as a potential for our youth to help gain more folks in the trades and to have an opportunity to retain those people here at the city, since we found it very difficult to find people with a background in the trades. 133-620-6170 also includes the Jane Addams Trail and Pecatonica Prairie Path. So these are the city shares of both of those alternate transportation paths. Okay, with that, I'd like to move on to the healthcare fund. The healthcare fund maintains all the revenues and expenses associated with employee medical, vision, and voluntary life insurance plans. So the revenues are individual contributions from corporate. So that's employee share, retired police share, retired fire share, retired AFSCME share, employees with optional vision insurance, and employees with optional voluntary life insurance. In addition, the revenue is employer share. That would be the city current employees and city retired employees. So under expenses, we have the premium expense, so that is the employee premiums and retiree premiums. Okay. All right, with that, if I'm going too fast, let me know. If there's anything you want me to slow down on or double back. Ashley, if you're ready, I'd like to turn the floor over to you for the library budget.
Okay, so first of all, the library's main source of income is property taxes, which is the first revenue line, 213,000,040,000. When our budget is presented to you, we estimate the equalized assessed value, what it will be, and increase the revenue to capture the full increase based on the EAB. The previous few years, we have increased the library's revenue by roughly 40,000 because the EAB is increasing. However, when the EAB decreases, so does the library's revenue. Other than our normal increase to revenue line 4,000, the only other big difference to revenue income is line 213,000,4045. As Manager Boyer explained what personal property replacement tax is, I would say that the city is legally required to allocate a portion of PPRT to the library, which is why the revenue line has increased, and the library's portion of PPRT was cut from the budget in 2018, and it is now being added back to the library's budget. Moving on to expenditures, we have 17 employees, 9 full-time and 8 part-time. 11 positions are bargaining, represented by AFSCME, and 6 positions are non-bargaining. You'll see an increase in salaries on expense lines 213-000-5000 and 213-000-5010. The library is going to do a benchmarking study with a consultant to analyze our pay structure and job descriptions. And then 2024 is also a negotiation year. For both of these reasons, you'll notice a larger increase to these lines of the budget. You'll also see increases in the health insurance because the rate is increasing by 5%. The non-payroll related expenditures that are different this year are lines 213-000-6260, which is our education, training, and travel. It's increased because we currently have employees that find value in continuing education, and the library board is in full support of raising this line of the budget. 213-000-6530, other professional services. This is where we've budgeted for the HR source consulting for benchmarking and legal services with the city's attorney. We also have 213-000-6545, which is outside legal, and this is a new line of our budget. There are times when we can use a lawyer, but it is in direct conflict of interest for the city's legal representation, so we will be acquiring a library specialized attorney. 213-000-6585, printing line has increased so that we can send out a paper newsletter in May that has all of our summer events to all of the residents in the city. And with that, I can send it back to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, moving on, we're gonna just touch base on, let's see here.
Can I just ask one question?
Yep.
You skipped over the foundation expenditure. Sometimes that's there, sometimes it's not. What's
Yeah.
that?
So the foundation expenditure is, thank you for noticing that, is a newer line to the budget that we added last year, and it's new last year and this year. And the way that we do that is the revenue line is gifts and bequests, and then the expenditure line, it's easier to track if we just put it coming out of that line.
Okay, just
One-
moving on.
One more
here.
quick question.
Yeah.
So the telephone and communications line, what types of phones and is it the same as the rest of the city or is it different?
No, we're on Star to Star is what it's called, and we've had a contract with them for I think we're at 7 years now. So that contract is coming up to expire, so we'd be doing some of the things that Kurt did to reanalyze and see if we can get something that's cheaper. We also do sometimes take our hotspot expenses from that line of the budget.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, just moving on to Downtown Revitalization Loan Fund. Currently, only one loan is in repayment. And the history of this fund is has been used to fund the ABET Waves demolition and also the City Hall demolition. Okay. Next item is Fire Public Safety Fund. This fund supports public education regarding fire safety. The fund is supported by donations from the public / other organizations. For 2024, we are proposing to utilize $12,930 in reserves from prior years, and items such as smoke detectors for residents' homes are purchased with these funds. Okay. Moving on to the Foreign Fire Fund. The Foreign Fire Insurance Board is in control of this budget. The Foreign Fire Insurance payment is an annual payment and is received from the Illinois Municipal League. They collect the 2% foreign fire insurance tax from out-of-state insurance companies that conduct business in Freeport. The board determines how these funds are spent per Illinois state statute. One of my favorite funds is the landfill closure fund. The city is responsible for the care and monitoring of landfills 2, 3, and 4 located on Walnut Road. We currently have a 50-year lease with Gills for the transfer station. So the revenue, the transfer from a general fund to cover financial year expenses is the amount is $389,300. We currently have a post-closure liability estimate of $5 million. This was an audit finding this year, and we propose to move $250,000 into the fund annually to begin to decrease the liability. So essentially, we're running a account balance of about $5 million, and what we want to do to also comply with our auditors is put a little money in there every year to make that less. Okay, Health Environmental Fund. The Health Environmental Fund contains revenue and expenses related to our garbage collection service. So on the revenue side, other charges of service, reimbursement of property taxes or transfer station. In 2023, we reimbursed property taxes from 2 prior years. This is not a normal occurrence. Waste and recycling payments were from residential customers. Then on the expense side, annually we present to council a bad debt write-off request. The $25,000 is an estimate. Disposal and recycling payments these are payments to Gills. And real estate taxes, payment of property taxes on the transfer station, which is a revenue collection services, each month to the Health and Environmental Fund pays for the water sewer funds to be put funds to a fee to put the charges on the water bill. So, Michelle, did you want to add anything on that last bit?
Just the revenue collection.
Yeah.
So that's just a action of, since the garbage bill is not billed by itself, the garbage fund is not paying to send the garbage bill out on its own. It's included with the water bill. So the garbage fund is paying the water sewer fund back for printing postage. That amount has been the same for, gosh, as long as I've been here. It's just a monthly transfer from this fund to water sewer.
Okay, well, that pretty much covered all the funds that we were going to discuss tonight. I'd like to open the floor up for questions.
Alderman Shadle.
Going back to general fund, the line item 0004950, I believe it is. The 700,000 that's pulled back out of the fire equipment fund.
What was the code again?
It was the second to last one, 4950, I believe.
Transfer from Fund 32?
Yes.
Yeah.
Last year, we scrambled to come up with money for an aerial and a ladder truck because this fund that was set up to have money for these vehicles, we're transferring money out of it. And I find that kind of counterproductive that we're supposed to be saving money for this equipment and we're taking money out of it and then we're scrambling when the stuff comes due. You know, we got a 20-year window on this aerial and, you know, the next one's probably going to be $3 million. We really should be saving that money so that when that 20-year window is closed, we've got the money to buy the truck instead of scrambling to find funding.
Michelle, do you want to shed any light on that?
Sure. So the reason why that's in the budget right now is I'm following the ordinance. So there is a written ordinance with the 54% in it, so it would take the council to change that ordinance, if that's what you'd like to do. I do propose, if that is something you'd like to look at, that we should work with the fire department to create a 20-year plan for all of their capital to find out exactly how much needs to be saved every year in order to have that in the bank, like you say.
And I think that needs to be visited.
Okay. Chief, could you make a note?
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Any other questions?
I do. So the bad debt expense, just looking back over the last, few years, what all goes into that? Is that mostly water and sewer bills? Is that other things? What is it?
I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Michelle on that one.
It would be, because we're just looking at the trash fund right here, that would actually be those that have not paid on the trash component of their water bill. The system will automatically split it if someone doesn't pay their whole bill, for example, and they've been gone. This is for people over 7 years. They've been, we haven't been able to collect on it. The system will automatically put to bad debt the portion of the bill that's water, the portion that's sewer, and the, trash, and it will go to each of those funds.
So I think we also had a period of time where we had some confusion, some issues with MIUs, and this is going on a decade ago. And then we also had some changes with the ordinances allowing or reducing the city's ability to collect on certain properties that have been, say, no longer using water, yet we're still accruing CIP. So there's quite a bit of those types of activities going on here in the last couple of years, trying to get all the books in order from over the years.
Madam Mayor?
I know this is an extremely small amount, but just out of curiosity, the airport farm leases, how many acres do we lease in farmland?
Mayor, we're actually working on that right now. It wasn't, I guess I became aware of it a couple of months ago, having a meeting with Angie, talking about all the different farm leases and talking about some of them were delinquent and that we need to do something about that. I was not aware we were leasing any farmland up to that point, and so we're going to continue to figure out which one of those properties are not being paid, and we'll either go back and make sure that those leases are covered in full, or we'll figure out what to do if it takes some kind of legal action. I don't know, whatever it's going to be. So.
Yeah, because that's a really small amount. That would probably be like 30 acres of farm ground at that cost, so that's pretty small. Unless you have any idea how many acres it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd have to ask the airport manager, and I don't know that figure off the top of my head.
Been pretty small for many, many, many years.
Yeah, well, it all adds up.
Payment.
Anybody else? I have one question because we've got the marijuana tax collections. I don't know if that's proper terminology for that, but since we're collecting taxes on that and we do the same with cigarettes, do we file the same charges for avoiding those tax penalties, things like that? It was just a question for the deputy chief. I don't know the answer, so.
I guess I don't understand your question.
So now that we're taxing and licensing CBD sales, do we, when somebody's avoiding, paying the tax portion of that by selling illegally, are we charging them with the appropriate crimes? Is there laws against that, or?
So from what I'm hearing you say, like we would go in and do, if somebody's selling cigarettes illegally. Is that what you're asking me? Have we
Yes,
done
sir.
that with CBD?
Yeah, with CBD, they're similar. so-
Sure. Not to my knowledge right now, we haven't.
Okay.
I just have one more question. On the expense side of the foreign fire, there's $12,000 for education training. I don't know if all of their training is lumped into this, but are you aware that the IML offers free online training for all of those foreign fire?
I might have to have Chief answer.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. That particular line item under foreign fire is if the foreign fire board determines that specialized training is indicated or requested. So if we were to, that's fees for a state fire marshal sponsored training. So typically they'll go to Cherry Valley, but if we want them to come to Freeport and we have to pay their services or our entry fees, that special account would be allocated for that.
Thank you, Chief. Alderman Clem.
City Manager, two questions, and this goes back, way back, so I'm just wondering if it's still the same. Are we billed for every house in the city of Freeport for trash pickup?
I can answer that, but I want to make sure I'm right. Michelle, do you mind answering that one?
Are we billing every city, every home?
No, are we paying for everyone,
Oh,
whether
yeah,
somebody
yes.
lives there or not?
Well,
Yes.
we are billing for any trash receptacles that are set out.
You
I
can
don't
find-
think-
You can find it out for me, not a crisis, but I believe that's the way it used to be, number one. And could somebody tell me why we pay over $20 a month for trash pickup when the city of Lena pays 16 and they also offer a senior discount?
Well, as far as our contract's concerned, that was approved several years ago, and then the rate increases were also part of that, built into that. So is it 8 or 10-year contract, Michelle?
I think it's 10. I think it's 10 years, and the rate increases were programmed at the time the contract was set out. And I believe that's in ordinance, but I don't think that means we can't take a look at it.
I believe that we should. And I know it was done during Manager Crow's term here, because I was surprised at what it came out at, but I think that's quite a difference, and I believe they surely have a lot more employees, trucks, visibility, so on and so forth in Freeport than they do in Lena. So I think it's, one of the constituents brought it up to me, and if you want the actual numbers, they're in the Village Voices paper.
Just one last comment on that. I believe those fees will be going up in other communities that don't have a contract that we have. And in addition to that, and then this is just completely hypothetical here, but in Champaign definitely has. I know Freeport's not Champaign, but those folks have seen pretty significant increases in the trash bill, well in excess of what we pay every month.
Chair, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
It's my recollection, Michelle, do you recall that the fees were to be increased under the previous contract and they were not? And to bring them in line, it was going to be a huge increase, that we didn't want to jump that much in the first years, so it was weighted heavier on the back end than the front end.
That could be very true.
Do I recall that correctly?
That could be very true. I need,
It was a sliding scale, and I know it's heavier on the back end. I think that's the reason why.
Yeah. And I believe landfill cost was going up too, and that was one of the big drivers. So I don't remember all the
Tipping fees.
details.
Yeah, tipping fees have been going up as well.
Yep.
If that being the case, that would be the same case for Lena.
I believe communities like Lena are going to see a substantial increase, far more than we will see.
I'd just like to have you check into
Sure.
it. Sounds like a legitimate question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So that means we move on to item number 8. That is public comments, agenda or non-agenda items limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comments for the Finance Committee of the whole? If not, I will take a motion for adjournment.
Second.
First is Alderman Clem, second is Alderman Parker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.